Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Keynes, and Ed Mann.
Hi everyone, welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, and hopefully you like our new intro, our very swish intro that we sorted out this week. So
thank you, Fiverr.com, as mentioned last week.
Yeah, absolutely, it was incredible. As the intro said, I'm Michael Budd, and I'm joined by Ed Mann.
Hello.
And Fraser Hart.
Hello.
And we are one short tonight because our good pal Lou is, I think, just rammed with work, right? Am I right in saying
he's
that?
off on holiday. He's flying out to Spain tomorrow morning at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah. Wow,
yeah,
where's he off to?
Jet setting. I don't
Spain.
know.
I think just general Spain. I think there's only one Spain, so it's round there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got loads
the
of work
Costa
to do
del Spain.
in Spain. Costa del yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, well, hopefully he has a wicked time anyway. And shout out to Lou if you're listening to this on your flight out. That would be pretty cool. So, how's things, guys? Good week?
It's been going all right, actually. Yeah, I've managed to get myself, get off the project. The project that I have been working on for the last 6 months has finally got like a bit of an end to it. So this week I've been working on a different project, and I say different in quotation marks because I'm back on the MU project that you two guys both worked on. We were working together, so I'm back on that. I'm actually really enjoying it because it's in CodeIgniter, and I love CodeIgniter.
Yeah,
it's just nice to do something slightly different again. Anyway, and I've been working on it like 2 or 3 days now, and it's just been a joy to, like I said about 100 times just now. Like, it's good to get on something different. But I've already come across a few kind of hurdles that I've managed to get myself over. So it's been a good little learning experience as well. So it's been good so far.
Yeah, I've been back on CodeIgniter this week, and I have to say, I know like all the criticisms, but
I love it.
You can just code blindfolded. You really can, and
absolutely.
Just fly through stuff so quick. So, if that's what you need, if you need project done quickly, it's a nice little tool for that. But I guess you could argue that you can do that with Laravel and other such frameworks. But yeah, I'm with you there. I'm a big fan of CodeIgniter for getting stuff done quick. So,
Fraser, have you had a chance to play around with Ember yet? Because I know you were talking about that last week.
No, not yet. That project's not actually been signed off yet. So
just licking your chops there, waiting for it.
Absolutely, I really just want
to get that sticker on the back of your laptop.
Absolutely, I just want to dive into it and buy myself a sticker off the internet. Then I'll be content.
Legend.
Yes.
How about you, Ed? Good week?
Yeah, it's been interesting actually. It's been quite busy with the freelance stuff. Many late nights playing around with CI servers, continuous integration servers.
Yeah.
So me and the person I'm working with, we're trying to do it the right way. We're getting a bigger and bigger code base, and we're like, no, we're not gonna do the shortcuts. We're gonna try it the right way and stuff. And we're doing Git. We're doing Git. We've got our own private server set up for that, which is awesome. But we're like, well, actually, unit testing locally and stuff. Probably be good to set up our own server. Well, on the same server that we've got a Git or Git-alike instance on, just to use Jenkins. I don't know if any of you heard of Jenkins before.
No.
Jenkins, so it's a jar. Well, it's off Hudson. It's a fork off that, and what it is just this continuous integration server. And the idea is that it's a dumb idea. Well, it's a simple idea in a sense, which is great in computer circles to make things simple. Is that whenever I push, say, a git commit git commit to that server, it will then go, okay, let's run all the tests or do a boatload of stuff, and then give me some feedback. Which is great in the case of, say, like me and him are working on something, and he may be working on it in like evening, and I may be working on it in the morning or something, because I tend to do quite a bit of work early in the morning because I'm just sad. I'll push my stuff push my stuff to the box, and he'll pull it down. But during that time, maybe every hour we do is we then do we do all the unit tests, we run all those bad boys, and there's a couple of picks I wanted to talk about this week. Is that some stuff, some like heuristics and stuff which are quite cool, some statistics that we can build and get out of that to then kind of help us build. Because we're the source lines of code, it's getting quite big now. So trying to get this managed and stuff, and it's really cool because I used GitHub. A lot of GitHub projects use something called Travis CI, which is an open source equivalent of like Jenkins for like doing these things, which is running stuff when you push the stuff to a server. and it's quite cool being able to like do stuff like email alerts. So if there's a problem with a commit, I'll get emailed, he'll get emailed, and we'll both get an email saying, look, this is what's wrong and why, which is kind of nice to just let us know before we actually push something and deploy it to a server box, what's wrong and why.
That is very cool.
How about yourself?
Me, I just had a really busy week, just really busy. Just workload is through the roof at the moment. We've got a client coming in for a presentation tomorrow, so desperately trying to get a project ready for that, and we'll probably be working through to early hours of the morning tonight actually to get that done. So,
are you doing the presentation as well?
No, thankfully I'm not actually. It's a couple of other people, so if it crashes and burns, it's not really my problem. But
you just kind of feel guilty.
Yeah, exactly. No, I want to make sure it's all proper. So trying to get that done, and now balancing 2 modules at uni, and I'm barely keeping my head above water at the moment. So I'm loving it, really enjoying it, but it's a lot of stuff to learn. And whilst you're doing the lectures and stuff and working part time, you're then asked to read like research papers. So you'll have 2 or 3 of those a week. And then you're reading your books as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got assignments on top of that. So it's just really hardcore. And it's really hard to become an expert at any one thing. And in fact, it's not possible really in my mind. All you're doing really is you're just getting exposed to lots of different areas and learning little bits. And then, if you want to, you can then go and learn those things more. But it's really tough. But some of the topics are really interesting, like one of my modules is on artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And that is just, even for anyone who's not computer science minded, even if you just want to get to the philosophy and the history, it's really interesting stuff, because it's stuff that's been around since like the 50s. And like you look at some of the big predictions that were there in the 50s about what artificial intelligence was going to do, and it's just never really delivered. And I think you had what they called like the artificial intelligence winter, where basically just governments just scrapped any funding for it because they just gave up on it.
Yeah.
And it's now kind of having a resurgence now because the Japanese took it back up, and obviously the Americans didn't want to fall behind. So it's really, really interesting stuff. And in fact, I'll put something in the show notes, because there's something that Google did. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but it's called Google Brain.
Okay.
And
I've heard of that. What's that about?
I only found out about it today actually, but basically, it was Google's big artificial intelligence project. And basically, they obviously tried to make something that could learn for itself and all that kind of stuff. And basically, by the end of it, it just started finding video clips of cats. And that's what it was spending all its time
I love
doing.
cats, yes! It's obviously a normal human being.
That story's gone a bit twisted, but I'll put it in the show notes. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I remember like the only exposure I've ever had to artificial intelligence. Like I used to play a lot of computer games back when I was growing up, and I remember there was like the first ever game that had artificial intelligence in it, and it was like the first ever game that came out. So there was this big uproar, and the game was like the worst thing in the world. But it was like the extent of the artificial intelligence was like, if you keep punching this robot in the head, it's going to eventually put its arm up. Like that was the extent of it. Like it'll stop walking into your arm and it'll like put its arm up. But
that's quite interesting. Yeah, I never really actually thought about artificial intelligence in games actually, because I know some of the football games now they're supposed to adapt to your style of play and get harder. So
so you won't beat me at PES every freaking time then. Well, actually, no, you will, because I'm a normal playing human being. Maybe if I just get a load of computer, AIs on you, it'll be all right.
So you play Pro Evo rather than FIFA?
Because he's a loser. Yes, he does.
Yeah, I'm a Pro Evo.
Unbelievable, man. FIFA's all the way.
Do you like FIFA? I didn't think you were much of a football guy.
No, I don't like football at all, but FIFA's just the competitive aspect of it. Like me and a mate of mine that I used to live with, like we'd stay up like pretty much every night drinking beer and playing FIFA till like 2 o'clock in the morning, like screaming at each other because we would score like they were scoring goals. But yeah, I've got no interest in whatsoever in football, but just
beating people is what you want.
It just ignites that game. Just ignites something in me that just like turns me into an animal.
Oh, that is awesome. We're going to have a Pro Evo tournament at some point. Yeah. So sorry, I just completely went off on one there about artificial intelligence, but it's so interesting. So even obviously we do this podcast for beginners and stuff. Like you don't even need to look at code; just read about the history. It's really interesting, and it's definitely an area that I think about getting into in the future. So, yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of corrections that I probably should bring up from last week.
Sure.
Me being stupid, which happens quite a bit. So I finally uploaded my CDN blog post today. It was the one about fallbacks and stuff. Remember when Lewis a couple of weeks ago was talking about CDNs and fallback, local fallback like solutions and stuff.
Yeah.
I said that fallback.js checked if it had a 200 header response.
Yep.
Okay. But it doesn't actually do that, not unfortunately, but it doesn't actually do that. It does a better way, which is the way I want it to do it. It checks for the window variable. So in the case of so similar to how HTML5 boilerplate does it with window.jQuery, it actually checks like that, which is awesome. So that's just one thing I wanted to say. I did say it did 200 responses, but I don't think actually JavaScript can do that, to be fair. So it just checks to see if the window is actually available.
Cool. Yeah.
Or the window variable, sorry.
Perfect.
Sure. Any other corrections? Or
I've got a blog post as well that I did this week on PHP traits. I don't know if you two have had a little play around with traits.
I want to.
Well, maybe this may be interesting for you then, because I during the early development of a couple of projects I was able to build up a couple of traits that I use quite a bit. Because during the early stages, you're prototyping stuff, you're chucking stuff away, you're changing stuff, and a good topic we're going to talk about today, the OO stuff, is one about setters and getters. Accessors and mutators, the set methods and the get methods can be very boilerplate boring to make. You can get IDEs to do them and stuff, but I actually made a trait, and I found a couple that were very similar that actually uses the magic methods that are available in PHP to actually create these dynamically for you. So it just does a call method. So anytime you call and you may say set name, it will check to see if there's a name property available in that class, and it will actually just do the magic for you, which is quite cool because then when you actually deploy it, obviously, or commit the code, you probably should think about making the actual functions, hard-coded functions. But during prototyping, it's great just to be able to say, oh, actually, I want to property this. No, I want to rename it and stuff without having all this lingering code and this whole base. Because setters and getters are great, encapsulation is great, but it can be a bit of a pain. And another one was this singleton pattern. Which is quite useful. Well, it's used quite a lot, and there's a very simple pattern for it of actually making it. And I was able to abstract that and put that in a trait as well, which was quite cool. So yeah, it's on my blog. I'll put it in the show notes, and yeah, I find them really useful for initial development.
Can I ask you a question on that actually quickly?
Go for it.
My understanding of traits, obviously, just putting aside what you just said, everything, but is that you can it'll help you cut down duplication of code because you've got similarity of code there that you can just put in one place and use those traits. How's that different from what you could do with, say, like maybe like an abstract class?
So traits are the way I know traits initially were from Scala, and we'll talk about it later on a bit. But the base thing is, think about traits as a copy and paste thing, like an include file.
Yeah.
You're including that now. The nice thing about that is you can have a lot of them. In our case with PHP and Java, we have only single inheritance.
Yeah.
If you inherit from something, you can't inherit from another thing. And we'll talk about diamond problem and stuff later on. But so the idea with traits is you're able to compose out of a lot of these things and actually put them into the class.
Right.
I'm with you. So it's able to have more. It's like the interface thing where you can have multiple interfaces.
Yeah.
But only one that you extend from, one inheritance. But traits are awesome for that. They to me personally, they solve the problem of multiple inheritance without having to use multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance is awful. There's so many problems with it.
Quite interesting because even in Java, the topic of multiple inheritance is quite a widely debated one, isn't it? Really, I mean, okay, you can implement as many things as possible, but you can still only extend one thing.
Absolutely, and I've got a couple of show notes not show notes, sorry, but some notes for this episode about OO and stuff, talking about the problems that C++ have because they allow multiple inheritance, and even Python I think does as well. But Java and PHP have done it the right way, in my opinion, and so Scala.
Yeah. Okay, quite cool. Any other sort of plugs that you want to make? Any libraries, plugins, that kind of stuff?
Don't really have any plugs. It's nothing that we knew to you guys because obviously it was working in the MU project that you've both worked on before. But I kind of had to get involved in ffmpeg.
Yeah.
With a load of file conversions because I wrote a quite a lengthy Stack Overflow post about an issue that I was having. Basically, this site needs to play audio in HTML5 in all browsers. We had it working fine everywhere apart from Firefox, which the issue with Firefox is it won't play MP3s natively. So I had to work out a way of converting the MP3s that were uploaded to OGG format. So I managed to do that through ffmpeg, and then I wanted to do it with using the exec function, which I've never used before in PHP. So I was kind of like sitting there like racking my brain trying to work out all these variables that you have to pass into ffmpeg when you do this, and then after sitting there for about an hour, almost kind of getting it to where I wanted it to be, like I came across a bit of code that I think Ed had written in that same project, and it was basically exactly what I needed to do, but like change a couple of the parameters. So that was really useful, and it's a really cool thing, and to people that don't know, because I was actually unaware of this before I started using it. Like the exec function basically allows you to pipe off something to another process so it doesn't interrupt your current script executing. So to give you an example, in the way I was using it, the standard way that I guess you could do it would be you'd upload an MP3 file, and then you do the processing on the MP3 file, and then you return whatever you need to. But obviously, if you're going to be converting that MP3 file to another format, like I was converting it to an OGG format, that could be quite a lengthy process depending on the size of the MP3. So you don't want to kind of leave your user waiting for you while you're doing all this processing in the back end. So what you can do is just pipe it off to another process, and then your PHP script will return pretty much instantaneously. So it can do all the processing in the background, and it doesn't affect the user experience. So that was a really interesting thing for me to learn. And then off the back of this Stack Overflow post that Ed was trying to help me out with as well, basically the issue that I was having was that the web server wasn't serving up the OGG with the correct content header. So Firefox was what was the header that it was returning? Let me just pop that open now. Yeah, it was returning the OGG file with a content type of application octet stream, which is like the standard content type for like just a raw binary file. And what it should have been serving it up as would have been basically as an OGG file, but I couldn't quite get how to get it to do that. So there was a few things that I tried, and having investigated on the internet, there was like a mime.types file in the Ubuntu on the server. So I tried adding the correct file to the correct content type on there, and then that wasn't doing the trick. And then Ed suggested that I try doing it in htaccess files within the root and within the directory that was actually serving up the OGG file. And I couldn't get that to work either. So at the moment, it's sitting there in Stack Overflow like a ghost town. I'm looking at it at the moment, like I posted it. Like,
please answer me, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I put it on the back burner because I've got like about another week or so of work on this project to do. So I'm hoping like in a week someone's going to come up with the answer. So it's sitting there. But
so anyone on this podcast who's listening to this, please help if you can.
Absolutely,
we'll put it in the show notes. Please help.
So I posted this thing yesterday morning, and it's like so far it's had 16 views. So I think I think like something that I joked about to Ed in one of the tweets was it's probably going to have to go back to like a flash fallback like in 1999. So that's absolutely not what I want to do. But if worst case scenario, that's what I'm going to have to do.
Not ruling it out. No, that sounds like it's been a bit of a nightmare on that front.
It has, but I really do enjoy these things. Like it's kind of like, because the way I kind of like the way I look at it is you get like this rock with like the diamond in the middle, and then you're like slowly chipping away at the rock, and it's every time you get like a clump of rock off, you get a little bit closer, and it just gives you the motivation to keep hammering away down. I love it. Yeah, it's really I'd way prefer to be put in that situation than just kind of hammering out the same old code that I'm used to hammering out. Yeah, so it's been a good experience.
These are the times when you're actually learning, not when
you're
yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, like it. I didn't realize that about. I've used that exec function before, and I know it allows you to like execute a command like as if it was on the command line. But so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the script. Then it literally is doing that and then your rest of your script is still going.
That's correct. Yeah. So if you know, like have you uploaded video to YouTube before?
Yeah.
I'd assume it's a similar thing to what they do there. So you upload the video, and then it says, processing your thing, and it does it in the background, so you can still navigate away from the page once you've uploaded it, but it's still doing all the processing in the background. So it's Ed might be able to tap in a bit more. Like I say, it was his that his script that I kind of followed to get to where I needed to be. But as from what I understand, don't you have to put like an ampersand at the end of it to tell it to run in a separate process?
It's kind of like the naughty thing. It kind of puts it in the background process. So, yeah, it does exactly what you say. You know, like it doesn't say wait for me to finish. It says, "Oh, just carry on." You know, there's a couple of other things you could use. You could use like a message-based system, like messaging protocols and stuff. That can do that. I'm sure. I think we always say this. I'm sure we'll do a podcast on that sometime because I've been playing around with that as well this week, which is quite cool. You know, to do stuff, it's like it's sending emails, you know, delayed emails. You know, you don't want to send all this bulk email, you know, in one script. It would may time out, or when someone's actually signing up, you may want to put it in a queue and queue it off and then send it off like that, similar to what you were doing. But yeah, the nice way about that is you can do the exec function, put it in the background process, let it do its thing, and then just carry on with your script. Because, as you say, the user doesn't want to wait for you to, you know, do the actual conversion. They just want to get on with their sign-up process or their upload process.
Yeah, and you can get it to notify another script as well, can't you? Or to trigger another script. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you can then say once it's complete, then boom.
Yeah, fire this and that.
I've got a couple of picks. Sebastian Bergman. I'm sure you'll know him from the PHP Unit guy.
No. Oh, of course I do. No.
Well, anyway, you know PHP Unit. So he's the guy who made PHP Unit. He's a legend, you know. He has also made some pretty cool stuff called this is what I've been adding to the CI stuff, like PHP code coverage, lock, which is lines of code, source lines of code, and copy paste detector. PHP code coverage is awesome. It shows like how many tests you've actually written for certain bits of code, and if there are, it's called like 100. You want 100% code coverage, meaning that every line in your source, or every source line, is hit. Yeah. In all, for all tests, when you're aggregating them all up, it should all source lines should be hit. The lines of code one's quite cool because it shows you like insane stuff like, okay, firstly like your SLOC, so your source lines of code, then how many classes you've got, how many interface methods, what's the scope of these methods, etc. The average complexity of methods. It is very cool stuff that is kind of too much advanced really to actually look at on a certain thing, but it kind of gives you this idea of, maybe this project's getting a little bit too confusing in these certain areas and stuff. Yeah. And then the best one I find is the copy paste detector, which literally just says, look, mate, this is the drive principle's not been worked here. You've literally got this, and it's in the same place, and it's the same code. Which
I would hate that.
Well, the thing it's quite cool because, as you say, like sometimes look, you have to have the thing again and again, but in certain other things, it's like actually, and it just gives you that little thing, and that's what I like about the CI, server is to be able to say, oh, mate, you may be doing this wrong. That kind of gentle nudge instead of. Yeah, wait until it all goes to live, and then you've turned out you've just got a lot of duplicate code that you then need to do a find replace on all these files.
Yep.
Another thing is Steve Speaks. So he's the guy. I'm sure you'll hear. Well, you heard the intro, and then we'll definitely hear the outro. He's the guy from Fiverr, which Fraser brought up last week, which is a great website for this. I mean, I was amazed. For £3, we got this guy and to do this 60 words. Sounds awesome. It sounds professional. We actually do sound professional. It's quite amazing. He delivered it in WAV format, this high quality, format for us. And it literally only took like 2 days. So I can't thank him enough. Great service. Definitely recommend him. We'll put him in the show notes. The link in the show notes. It was absolutely awesome.
Absolutely.
And then another 2 links is jstherightway.org, which is similar to PHP the Right Way.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you've looked at PHP the Right Way. You can look at JS the Right Way, which is very similar to like, this is how, if you get into JavaScript, because I think JavaScript's got a very similar way as PHP where you can get into it and do the bad way, because JavaScript's around so much, you can get into some bad practice and stuff pretty easy. This, gives you like a nice rundown of, what to look out for, people to follow, people to, who are influential in the actual, the JS scene and stuff like that, and what frameworks, what all these buzzwords are, which is kind of cool. And another one is DigitalOcean, not DigitalOcean the actual server bit though, but the community articles.
Yeah,
they are great.
Yes,
I thought that. Yeah, because I've used them a lot, and I'm sure Fraser, you played around with DigitalOcean. Their articles are awesome.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's like step by step. Yeah, my DigitalOcean droplet is literally set up following step by step on one of those, and it's insanely good.
They are great, and they're brilliant. They're very cheeky, and what they've done is they literally say, look, if you want to, it's a community thing where you upload, you send them in an article, and they'll pay you like $50 or something. But they get very good SEO for that, which is very naughty. Well, it's not very naughty, but it's very clever. But their articles are great, so fair game to them, and it's just great idea, and Can't thank them enough. Like, I mean, I've been playing around with a bit of Python this week as well, and setting up a server in Python and stuff, and it's just been awesome being able to just look at these articles, and they're awesome. It's a great place. Like, at the moment, it's like the hot place I go to for articles for the latest thing.
Yeah. And on the topic of server providers as well, Hulk Hogan didn't get back to us, so yeah.
Uncool.
It's probably a fraud then. So if anyone out there is listening, I'd say don't ever use that.
Don't like Hulk Hogan ever again.
Yeah.
His leg drop can go to hell.
Yeah, wrestling's fake.
What? Don't crush my. Next you say Santa's not real. What?
Cool. Well, I think that pretty wraps up our week. Unless anyone else has anything they want to say.
Absolutely. No, did you have any plugins or anything you wanted to?
Yeah, not this week actually.
No?
Pretty bad, but
Sure.
It's been all wrapped up in the uni work, so not really. But I'll be back on it next week. Don't you worry. So we'll move on to this week's topic then, which is this is a little bit unexpected, but basically, as we explained at the beginning, our mate Lou can't make tonight because of holiday, and I think he's had quite a busy week at work as well. But so we did originally say we were going to do our second part on HTML, but we're actually going to wait till he gets back because he's done a load of material. So
that should be next week, I think. So just kind of.
Yeah. So hopefully it doesn't mess you guys around too much. We will come back to it definitely, but we thought whilst Lou's off, we do something else. We thought we'd look at, or just start to discuss OO, or object-oriented programming, which might seem like a little bit of a big step forward, considering we've only done 9 podcasts, and we've only really talked about the basics of PHP, and as we discussed before, unfortunately we can't spoon feed code to you over a podcast. It's just not the right medium to do it in. But hopefully we've given you a lot of the theory and a lot of resources that you can learn and go to on the web. So today, again, we're not really going to talk about code too much, but really want to just give you some idea as to what object-oriented programming is, because the way that you've probably learned, I'm guessing, is procedurally, i.e. line by line, you just go down a script and it executes in that order and everything's done that way. And to take it to the next level, like a natural progression in your learning will probably be to learn object-oriented programming. But it is a seismic shift in terms of the way that you understand code. And there'll probably be people listening to this who say, oh, that's rubbish. I learned OO. I went over to it in 2 days. I don't know what all the fuss is about. But if you're like me, it is something that will really rock your world.
And they're lying.
Yeah. Well, you do get a few natural geniuses in this world, and, we all hate them. But for me, it was a huge, huge shift, and it really was really hard for me to get my head around, just even the core concepts. And to me, I think it's really important before you even touch a keyboard, and I've said this many times, but before you even try and put down some code, it's really important to understand the concepts of object-oriented programming and just have a clear idea in your mind of what actually it is before you try and translate that into code. So anyway, that's enough from me about what we're going to talk about. So I guess, does one of you want to talk about the concept of object-oriented programming?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So OO, or object-oriented programming, is like a common, as Mickey was saying, is a commonplace paradigm that is used in software development today. A paradigm, I suppose it's probably best to go, is a base style of computer programming. So it's a style of programming, not actually like a programming language, but a style of programming that helps meet the domains, the project domain that you have. Like large businesses use OO, and the idea is with OO is you simulate real-world objects or objects. And the first language to do that, well, as the name was, Simula 67, which is considered the first OO language, and that, as the name states, was used to make simulations and to produce and create simulations in that domain. It was the first to introduce stuff, concepts such as objects, classes, inheritance. So you've got OO, and then, as Mickey, you were saying, you've got the paradigm of procedural and imperative. You've got other paradigms such as functional, which stuff like Haskell and Scala, but Scala's it merges the OO and functional worlds. But today, yeah, OO is a massive topic, and languages such as Java, C#, Ruby, Python, PHP, they all, at their core, are OO languages. They're not at their core OO languages, but they implement OO paradigm structures.
Yeah.
I suppose the advantages of OO are that they provide a module structure. So the idea is, because you're abstracting away using data types and implementing details hidden inside these data types, they allow you to clearly define interfaces that users can then actually use. That's called encapsulation. So it allows you to say, I don't need to know how you implement this, I just know you can do this. And that is an abstract data type. That's saying, I don't care how you do it, you can do this. A stack, I know that I can pop from a stack and push from a stack. I don't care if you pop, to a RAM, or maybe you're using some funky thing on the web. I don't know, I don't care. As long as I can use you with this interface, that's fine. This then, in turn, makes it easy to modify code and create new objects. It allows you to be able to extend these objects because you're extending the implementation that they've providing your own stuff. Say, like the stack example, maybe I like your, I'm extending you. I'm going to use your pop your pop function to pull stuff, to pop things off the actual stack. But to push it, maybe I want to do some logging. So I'm going to extend your class, make maybe a logging stack, which then logs the information and then maybe even calls the function that you've already done, and that's called inheritance.
Yeah.
And another thing is, the OO is very big in graphical user interfaces, which is probably the best way to we all go through the example of saying, I have a user, and then I have an admin user, but actually graphical user interfaces are probably a very good way of actually explaining it, whereby, I have a button that extends maybe the user interface, and then the button implements clickable because it can be clicked and stuff like that, and it has these methods, etc., etc.
Yeah. I was thinking just to take it back a step for a minute, for anyone who's never done OO before, really just to explain what an object is and what the difference is between an object and a class, and really what an object can be. Because for me, I think at the beginning was this concept of what should be an object, what shouldn't be. I mean, is an email an object? Is a cat an object? All that kind of stuff for me at the beginning was quite confusing. But I guess one of the things we should start off with is to talk about the difference between a class and an object. Did one of you two want to go through that?
I'd happily defer over to Ed again.
If you're happy, yeah. Are you happy with that, Ed? Or yeah. I can take it if you want.
No, go for it, man. If you want to.
You sure?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, so but I'm going to say this very simply. I put it in the most simplest terms that I possibly can. But basically, a class file is like a blueprint of your object. So if you think of, say you're going to make a human object and your program is going to refer to 5 or 6 different humans. All of those humans will instantiate the class. So they will take from that blueprint, and our blueprint will have several different key bits of information. First of all, they'll have what we call variables relating to state, so instance variables. And it's those that will separate our objects from other objects. So we'll know which one is which and what they are. So if I have 3 objects, which are Ed, Fraser, and Michael, they will have instance variables that say we set the name. But then they'll all have common methods that we have in the class blueprint. Say that we all have a method which is run, or we all have a method which is kick, or a method which is punch. So they're all in our class blueprint, and we all, when we instantiate that class, we all have those methods. But the thing that makes us separate is our instance variables. So our name, our age, those kind of things that will only be set when the object is instantiated. So really getting back to basics, the class is your blueprint, and the object is the instantiation of that blueprint. Did that make any sense to you two?
That made perfect, mate. That was much better than what I was yabbing on about. That is absolutely, perfect. Yeah. And I think, sorry, me going like 100 miles per hour.
No, that's all.
Oh, no, but data. It's all about data. It's not about how you do it. It's about the data. The idea is, like Mickey was saying, it's instances, it's objects. It's about, okay, I've got this blueprint, which is a user, and I have multiple, and it's reusing that. It's, dry principle, do not repeat yourself. It's duplicate, it's being able to reuse these things again and again, saying, I've got Fraser, I've got Michael, I've got Ed. What's different about them? The data's different. Not what they can do, the actions, although what we can do is actually extend them, etc., and etc. But if you initialize, you create an instance of them. I'm a user, but these are the different things, which is my data.
Yeah. And I would say as well, again, one of the things I tried to start doing more now since I've been doing my uni courses, and someone said this in one of the lectures the other day, that to make an interface or to code an interface is easy. To design an interface is hard. And that is, for me, I thought that was a really good point. And I do really think that if you're designing a big project, literally take time to get back to the pen and the pad and say, especially if you're doing it in an OO way, which, hopefully after a while you will, have a think about the classes that you're going to need, how they're going to interact, how you're going to encapsulate data so that it's safe. And on that topic as well, I don't know if you agree with this, but certainly for me, I definitely think about encapsulation more when I'm programming in Java than I do in PHP. It's almost, I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to PHP.
It's because it's dynamic. I understand what you mean, because you're static and you're compiling it as well. I can understand. It's easy just to build. PHP is great because an object, you can actually just quickly assign a value to a property to an object, or a standard class as they call it. But I mean, I don't know if you lot ever use data modeling stuff like UML, Unified Modeling Language, class diagrams, etc.
Yeah, only in my uni course, to be honest.
Because those once you start those are really good. I use that in doing my uni course as well, and I've done a couple outside. It's like class diagrams, sequence diagrams, use case diagrams, and it's that idea that Mickey was saying: get down pen and paper, get the pen and paper out, stop hacking away on the keyboard, and actually think about what you're making. And that's when OO comes into its core. It's about abstracting away problems. It's about people make. I always had this thing because I started off in the OO world really, and I've only just started touching C, etc. And it was very much, I've got a class to do that. I've got the library, the stack interface, stack implementation. I'll keep going back to the stack, but I've got the stack implementation in Java. I don't need to know how it's made. I'm building up a bigger, I've got a bigger problem to deal with. I've got my business's problem, my customer's problem to deal with. And that's, abstraction, that's encapsulation, that's letting them deal with that stuff, allowing them to update that. And as long as they provide the interface that they give me, and they don't change that, I'm fine. But in the C terms and stuff like that, a lot of people do with the feet up approach, which is a American Hustle. I don't know if you watched that movie or phrase, but from the feet up, where it's literally, I'm going to build everything. Yeah, I'm going to build my own stack interface. Well, my implementation. I'm going to build my own data structure. And it's like, well, do you really need to? It's about reusability. We've got a bigger problem to deal with here. We've got the client's problem. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel all the time. And that's when object-oriented programming, personally, like functions, but on a bigger scale, becomes, shines and becomes into its own.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Just stepping away, because really when we talk about OO, we shouldn't be talking about PHP OO. Object-oriented programming is a way of programming. It doesn't matter what language, there'll be different ways of,
Even classic ASP can do OO.
I'm sure that would be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, certainly things like Java. I mean, if you could start to do object-oriented programming in PHP, then you can move over to Java really nicely, and it really opens up a lot of things to you. But certainly, encapsulation with Java is really important, and certainly when you progress more, and you might start looking at concurrent programming and all that kind of stuff. The idea of state becomes really quite important. I don't think so much in PHP, you wouldn't really worry too much, but certainly in other languages, the idea of state is certainly when you get more advanced. I think it's about keeping state to an absolute minimum, because that's the concurrent side of you talking now, isn't it? Yeah,
letting you're all about this horizontal instead of vertical. I prefer the vertical. Let the hardware deal with it. But you are right there. I mean, it's funny actually in PHP world. PDO is people use that now, and that is class based. And there's a lot of class based stuff in PHP now. I like the datetime object. class, and what actually PHP does quite nicely is it degrades down to, well, it doesn't really degrade, but it provides an interface in function form like PHP users, a lot of them are used to, but really you can actually and should be using the the class instance forms, because that's what it's actually using under the hood, and that allows you, so I think there's a lot more PHP actually that nowadays, because since real good PHP came in PHP 5, and a lot more, building on from 5.4 with traits, etc. Things are getting good in PHP, and they're very similar to Java. I'm sure Mickey can, definitely say that thing. He played with PHP before Java and finding it actually they're very similar. Yeah. PHP stole a lot of stuff from Java in that sense. There's a lot of things in PHP, new PHP, new implementation, new improvements and additions to PHP that are class-based that can phase you if you're very used to the function and procedural approach. But yeah, it's a very good thing to use, even in PHP, and especially stuff like we were talking about, Codys to Laravel. I mean, this is all using, and then we'll get into design patterns and stuff, which, it's a very important topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that topic, actually, because it seems like a good idea at this time. You just mentioned about PDO. We should probably just talk about, I don't know if we have actually mentioned this before in one of the previous podcasts, actually, but it's probably worth repeating again, this progression that we've had from the old database functions to PDO. So I don't know, Fraser, if you could fancy talking a little bit how in the olden days we would connect to a MySQL database before PDO.
Before we connect to it, or how we'd execute queries, or
well, both really. Connecting and running the queries themselves, I guess.
Okay, to be honest, like when I first started using PHP, I came from the classic ASP world, and we were doing pretty much exactly the same way that we were doing it there. So it was kind of you specify. To be honest, I'm going to struggle to even explain it because it's kind of like a copy pasting that I put in every project, and then that was it.
Me too.
So it was I'd basically connect to it with this thing that I copied and pasted into the top of every settings file on every website, and wrote raw SQL, and then took the raw SQL and I can't even put it into words. To be honest with you,
I can't even think what the syntax was. Was it MySQL_connect, and then you put in your credentials in there?
Was that for
W3
classic
skills?
ASP, or was that for PHP? Isn't that for PHP, the MySQL connect?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, sorry. Are you talking about classic ASP or PHP?
Oh, sorry, this is PHP. Yeah.
So good old MySQL connect, and then it would have a resource. You could supply a resource each. You could have multiple resources, or you could use the default one. Then you'd have MySQL_query. You do the whole simple, MySQL_connect or die, which is always a nice one. And then you do while fetch another record, etc. And the idea really there was you're just using these functions, and it would you could share a resource, or you could just use the default resource that it would provide you. With PDO, the idea is you're then now got instances of Blueprint classes, which means then you can have multiple ones of these. You can encapsulate the data inside of there, and you can do stuff like SQL. You can do stuff like sanitization of data and stuff. And the idea is to stop SQL injection, etc., which was a big problem with the MySQL_connect, etc. plugin. That is now been deprecated. I think it's been removed in 5.5, which is kind of nice.
Is that right?
I think so. 5.5 it's been removed. I could be wrong, but I know it was deprecated in 5.4. I think actually maybe it's 5.6 that they removed it. I think it's two release cycles. So the idea then is now that we actually use objects, we create an instance of this object, we use exceptions, etc., to handle errors, not just false or -1 or something like that. And really, idea is to get into the OO approach, and because the great thing with PDO then is actually, in a sense, you could probably extend the PDO object to do stuff that maybe you want. Maybe you want a PDO user or something, and it has special methods just for you that maybe just do queries and stuff, but have all the functionality of PDO, have get users, etc., or stuff like that. Allow you to extend it to handle what you need.
Absolutely. I mean, looking back, it was so easy to do, though, wasn't it, to connect to a database to make those queries? And I guess a lot of people will be listening and say, well, so it's PDO, but I'd say it's a little bit more fiddly, especially if you're not used to OO.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was with a friend today, and I was helping him out learn a bit of PHP and stuff, and Yeah, I mean, PDO is funny because you go through all this stuff and you know, you're teaching functions and simple, you know, $_gets and stuff. And then you get to PDO and you're like, am I going to have to bring up the whole OO concepts and stuff? Like, oh, what's a new class and stuff? And it's like, that was what was nice about the MySQL_Connect. You know, it was simple and it got the job done and we used it for many years. But you do hit, you know, a wall eventually for like, I need to like start abstracting this. Code base is getting too big. I can't just rely on, you know, class functions pretty much, just a bunch of functions that have different names, _2, etc., or something like that for a function, you know, and you know, inheriting and code, you know, reduction and stopping duplication, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly do think, I mean, probably a lot of people screaming at me listening to this, but I do find PDO a little bit more fiddly, and I would say debugging as well is a little bit more tricky because you have to do, what's it, PDO, : error info, is it, or something like that?
Yeah, you can enable exceptions, which is what I normally do now, which is just it throws the exception. But again, that's a whole other thing you have to then set up. Yeah. And if you don't know exceptions, and it's hard to get into, and I was saying, like with new people, it is hard to kind of jump in at that end. But the benefits are that PDO is great. It's PHP data objects. There's a bunch of drivers in there. You can use it with MySQL, SQLite, Postgres, MS SQL, etc. And it will provide you with a good learning block, you know, good learning material. And there is good material online for it. Jeffrey Way's done some great stuff, which allows you to understand the benefits of using classes and instances inside the actual core of PHP, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. You know, you said about these exceptions and what have you. This project that I've been working on for the last 6 months is an API that I've had to kind of delve into every now and again, and all that's done with PDO and stuff executing there. But I found that if the SQL query is incorrect, then it just silently dies. And is that something that can be modified, or should I be doing something different with that? Because
I think you can actually. I think at the beginning, I'll put it in the show notes. You can actually set saying, "I want all errors on."
Right.
Throw an exception anytime there's a problem, which is what you want. You want quick, you know, die quickly in development.
Because I've only had to jump into that a couple of times, but it's kind of the only times it ever throws up errors is when the key value pairs don't match when you're passing in your, whatever you call them, your placeholders.
Prepared statement.
That's right. Yeah. So the only time it throws an error is when that happens. Whereas if your SQL, or if in this instance, if the SQL statement's wrong, then it just hasn't been given me any kind of indication, so it's been a bit of a pain to work with. But
do you remember the beauty of just concatenating a string together and MySQL real escape string or whatever?
Absolutely.
The beauty.
Truly, they were golden times. I'm just trying to think, like, in terms of like some of the topics we need to cover in this podcast. I think, you know, polymorphism, we'll leave that for now. That's too much for now. Even though it's one of those words that seems a lot worse than it is, but we'll leave it for now.
I mean, actually, to be honest, I could explain it really simply. But all it is polymorphism. Again, it's a funky word, and all it means is many types. It means this class has the ability to take more than one form, meaning I can pretend to be something else. Yeah. You know, I can pretend to be. Say, if I'm a let's do a stack then. Sorry, I always go with a stack. Say I'm a stack, right? I can pretend to be a list because technically I've got all the things that a list needs to be. You know, I've got a list structure. You know, I can pretend to be, you know, something else, etc. Or it's like the user thing. An admin user may extend a base user, but he can still pretend to be a user because he knows and he is as good as the user was.
Yes.
I always think of it as being he's dumber than he's cleverer than a user, so he can actually do all the stuff user can because it's up higher in the hierarchy.
Yeah, and that's exactly one of the things I was just going to say. Actually, is perhaps if we talk about how class hierarchy works, and perhaps if we go back to example, keep it with the same theme. We were talking about, say, we had this human class, and then we had Ed, Fraser, and me who instantiate that. Let's say that we extend.
Have a mutant class that extends it.
Hang on, are we extending from mutant, or mutant extends from us?
Mutant extends from the human class because we're already instances of human. We have a mutant called Lewis. Yeah. Lewis is a hero. I like that. He's the. I love you, Lou. I love you. You know I love you.
Yeah. Do you want to discuss how a mutant would work, and then perhaps just touch on, like, very briefly about how polymorphism in that sense.
Yeah. So we've got a human, and we've all got a name. So we're going to have our setters and getters called get name and set name. So we've all set our names. We've got all that. We're base humans. Then we have this mutant, and sounds really bad. that extends human. He has a name, but he's also got a method called be awesome at golf.
Yes.
And that returns a ridiculously awesome golf. You need to check his YouTube video out that I posted, which is insane of him doing golf. So he's got a method called be awesome at golf.
And eat kebab as well.
Eat kebabs.
Yeah.
So we've got those two methods as well. So he's got his set name and he's got these two new methods called be awesome at golf and eat kebab. It doesn't matter what the code blocks do, but he's got those methods. We then, not he, but that blueprint's got that method. We then instantiate a new object of that class called Lewis. Lewis now has all the power that we have, but because he's extended from mutant, because he's an instance of mutant, he's extended from us, from our human class. He's got all the power we have, but he's also got these other two methods. And he could also have the ability to override the methods that, he could then say, actually, my set name doesn't just do set name, it also appends is awesome at the end of set name or something. So Lewis is awesome or something like that. But he can always be us. So, because he's got the methods that we need to fulfill the contract between our data, for our data type, our abstract data type, he could always be us. So we could always chuck him in, and this is where it comes into static type languages. We could always chuck him in to a anonymous list, which is a heteroanonymous, a list that is the same of everything. He could always be a user, but we could never be a mutant. We could never be good at golf. We could never eat a kebab, we could try and eat a kebab, but
not with the same flair.
Not with the same flair, absolutely not. So we could never be a mutant, but he could always come back to be us because he's cleverer than us. I do that. It sounds stupid, but I always say, "Oh no, but he's clever." That class is cleverer because it knows everything I know, but a little bit more.
Yep. And I guess really what maybe we're not touched on, or maybe we have and I wasn't listening, is the idea of private, public, protected. Leave it at those three for now. But let's say with our mutant, like you say, he's extended and he's got all the things from human. And say our human has a method called kick, which I think I said before.
Yep.
Say that method is private. And then basically our mutant tries to use that method. It would not work because even though he extends from that class, it would not work because it's private. And in that situation, if you wanted to limit the visibility of that method, the accessibility of that method, you could set it as protected because that would say that anything within me can use me. And then anything that extends from me can use me.
And also that's the same with properties, isn't it, as well? Like variables, like class variables.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've covered a lot of the basics of OO. I appreciate it's a lot to take in. And like I say, I hope, maybe the people listening are absolute geniuses and they've just taken it all in. But if you're sat there and you're thinking, I haven't got a clue what these guys have been talking about for the past... well, maybe 9 podcasts, I don't know. But maybe the past hour, you were not sure what going on about. Don't feel bad, don't feel silly.
Because I will get it eventually as well.
But what I usually say to people who struggle to take it in is literally just when you're walking down the street, just think of everything in object format. Think, okay, the car. Okay, there's lots of cars around. There's a Ford, a BMW. Say they might all extend from car class. And they might all have a certain amount of methods that are common to all of them, i.e. steer or something like that. But then they're going to have lots of their own instance variables that are manufacture or model, all that kind of stuff. If you start getting into the mindset where you start envisaging everything in object format, I find it helps you to then translate that into code when you start to plan your project.
That's a great way of thinking about it. Yeah. It's relationships, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
It's relating things. It's like, how can I relate these two things? But the trouble is, you can get into the thing of over-relating stuff, can't you?
Yeah.
Where you over-abstract. And the idea actually of OO is to be able to reuse stuff, not only in your project, be able to take it out and use it, and in other projects, etc. Because of the encapsulation and stuff. There's only 2 other things I would like to say just in this ep. Is inheritance and composition. We've talked a bit about inheritance. Inheritance you can think of as an is-a relationship. So like in Mickey's example, a car is a vehicle.
Yeah.
A person is a mammal. So when I'm saying I'm inherit that, it means I am that, meaning, like the mutant thing. Mutant is a human. A composition is different, has a relationship. So a car has an engine, or a person has a name, and I'm composed of those parts. And there's kind of like a vertical line and a horizontal line. We'll talk about the horizontal line a little later on with composition, which comes in very important, when you're building these big systems. But at the moment, concentrate on that vertical line, which is inheritance of, there's a class called car. Oh yeah, we extend that with a Porsche. Porsche may extend to have like a sports car, and maybe have an extension to an SUV or something like that. And then those are instances, etc.
Yeah. And I guess I know we talked about this a few times before, and obviously I think we spoke to Fraser the other week about his first experience with. So I always forget the name. Silverstripe, right?
Silverstripe, yeah.
Silverstripe, and any frameworks that you're going to be playing around with probably are going to use OO. So before you really get into them, it's a good idea to learn a lot of the concepts and the theory. You could probably get by with some of the other frameworks like CodeIgniter, but it's more advisable to learn it if you can. Because
I always found with CodeIgniter, the first thing I did was like, people say is, there's a lot of this, this, and it's like, that's the OO side. And once you understand OO, you'll be like, I know why they're doing this, etc., and all that funky stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly for me. We'll talk about frameworks in another podcast, but just to just kind of wrap up, I guess. But CodeIgniter was my first framework, and I found it so hard when I first. Looking back now, I wonder why.
It was your first time with OO as well, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And like you say, this meant nothing to me. What is this? Now I get it, but it is a seismic shift in terms of the way that you think about it. But Fraser, how did you find CodeIgniter when you first? Because you learned CodeIgniter after Silverstripe, right?
That's right. Yeah, I came to CodeIgniter after Silverstripe, and it was fairly easy once I had the concepts of. I don't know if it was because, as people probably heard, like I struggled to actually define OO and what have you. Like all I know is that I can do OO programming, but it's kind of, I find it really hard to actually describe, like in the way that you guys have just been talking about it. Like I wouldn't be able to have that conversation at all. But it's kind of I really don't know. But it was Silverstripe to me was an absolute. I don't want to use the F word, but a head F. And it was a horrible experience. Like the first couple of months of working with that, because I'd only done procedural before that. But then once I had the concepts from there of the whole MVC side of things, going on to CodeIgniter was actually fairly straightforward, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like the learning curve was a lot quicker than I was expecting it to be. But it was definitely getting that first experience of working in MVC and in object-oriented programming was a really scary time for me.
Yeah. I was exactly the same, and I think it's probably something that most, certainly maybe web developers go through. So anyone listening, again, if it all seems a bit alien, it's just a natural progression, and you'll get it, and it's fine after you've been playing with it for a little while, I guess. But certainly something I'd recommend. I don't know if you think the same, Ed, but
sorry. In general, I definitely recommend
the mind reader.
I'm glad you agree already. It's just to just open up, I don't know, Notepad, Sublime, whatever you're playing around with. Just create some class files. Just literally, like I said, on top of just walking around and envisaging things as objects. Just start writing down those blueprints. Just open up your class, start writing it down. Just start thinking about your instance variables, what they're going to be, and just start thinking about the methods that they're going to have. And I think just by doing that, even if you don't have a project in place, just start doing that, and you get a really good idea of how to do it, and start extending things. Maybe implement something. We've not really talked about implements. Did you want to just?
That's just interfaces, isn't it? It's the idea that I had this contract that I will fulfill these methods and become that type, that polymorphism idea where I can be that type. I could be you, or similar in a sense to the idea that. Lewis could be us as humans. You could have like an interface, say maybe as doesn't like kebabs is an interface, or maybe or something like that as an interface that we then everyone who doesn't like a kebab has a reason for that. So anyone who implements that, we then say, oh, Mickey, who is still a human, but he implements that he doesn't like an interface. No, that doesn't like interface. Sorry, doesn't like a kebab interface, and then because then he can become that interface.
Yeah, absolutely.
That example is definitely a bit wishy-washy, but
no, I'm happy with that. I mean, I think you're right. Just, I mean, I guess the thing is it is just like contract. It says, look, it needs to have these methods, and
but that's the composition, isn't it? That's the vertical line instead of the horizontal, where I can have loads of stuff I implement.
Yeah,
because I have these contracts that I can be, but I can only extend for one person in our example. Yeah. And we'll talk about in another episode now the idea of multiple inheritance, which is kind of stupid. I mean, it really is. C++'s idea of it is stupid, in my opinion, but I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for that.
I was going to say, yeah, you'll probably get some.
But I traits are the way. Scala's the great way of doing it, and Scala for the win.
All right. One other thing I guess we haven't discussed is the role of the constructor, which basically, I've talked about how the class is the blueprint and your object is the instantiated version of that. Your construct is where it becomes that object and you set those instance variables. So you could change those variables at any point in that object's lifetime, providing they've got the right access. So they must be public or you're changing it from inside that object. But the construct, which the syntax looks a bit horrible in my mind so in PHP, but basically it would look something like public function __ construct. And then you've got like a opening and closing brackets, and in between there you can say what shape the object takes when it's very first instantiated. So you can say, okay, create me this object. When it's created, call him Ed, do this, do that. And then at any other point in its lifetime, you can call methods to change its state or to invoke its methods. But the construct is to do with the very birth of the object, what happens when it's very first.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like you supply you've got the parameters that you provide with the construct, and then you supply arguments to that when you create that instance that then you can use in the construct like a normal function. But as you say, it's building up that instance, the birth of that object instance. Yeah.
Guys, I'm thinking we're breaking up to the hour mark. Am I right there?
You are indeed.
Yep.
So, have we missed anything really important that I'm just being really stupid and forgotten? Or do you think that's a good...
I think that's a really solid... Yeah, I really do think that's... I mean, there's one thing I'd say, on top of the fact of like just going in and building your own classes, blueprints and stuff, play around with PDO. Have a little look at that, like what PHP does, and there's a bunch of other classes in there and stuff, like the date time. Play around with the date time.
Date time, really good one.
Have a go at that. There's some great documentation on PHP in the PHP docs for that, and see how they've done it. And and the great thing there is you have the choice to use the first class, the simple functions or an actual object of the same thing. So you'll get to see, that's why it's better to use an object. And that's actually quite a nice thing you can do in PHP, is to have the compare and contrast of why you'd want to use an objects over basic functions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think we'll leave it there. But if anyone's screaming at us right now thinking, well, you've not discussed this or that, honestly, we really would like your feedback, and we really love it when we do get a tweet or an email. And
yes, thank you so much again, that guy. That was awesome.
Yeah, we're officially international now. We've got an official US listener and someone who's flying to the south of Spain with us.
Absolutely. And the American guy didn't complain about how British it was, like the other American guy.
Four British guys who sound British. What would you expect? I mean, it's crazy. Hello, would you like some tea?
But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And like I say, anything that we've not covered that you really think we should have done, please get in contact. And we also listen back to it. So if we think there's anything we've missed, we'll be sure to bring it up in next week or the week after. But hopefully, next week we'll have our main man Lou back, and we'll be looking at the second part of HTML. For anyone who is an OO expert and has listened to that, I'm sorry, but hopefully at least the intro chat gave you some good stuff to look at and some good resources and stuff. So thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week.
Awesome.
Bye. Sorry, one quick thing. Man. The outro will have our contact information on.
Yes.
Contact at 3desandmaybe.com and our Twitter handle. So that's where you can contact us.
And follow us on Twitter if you're not already.
Boom.
Yes. Boom.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3devsandamaybe.